Welcome back. In this tutorial, we're going to talk about tuples. Tuples are another data structure in Python. Tuples are ordered, immutable sequences of elements. They are similar to lists, but with a key difference. Once created, tuples cannot be modified. This immutability makes them useful for representing fixed collections of items. So let's dive in. So I'm going to create an example of a list. So the first thing I'm gonna do is create an empty tuple. So this is gonna be an empty tuple, and I'm gonna call it empty tuple, right? And this is how like you set an empty tuple. And then if I print it to the con to if I print it to the terminal, and I run it, if I print it to the terminal, tuples.py, you'll see an empty tuple. So say if I wanted to add an element to a tuple, what I can do is type single element equals the number one with a comma, right? So now I've created a tuple with one single element and I've added a comma. So note the comma. And the reason why you should add a comma is to differentiate it between a regular expression with a parentheses and a tuple. So this is required even if you only have a single element. So now what I'm going to do is print this single element to the terminal. And then there you go. I have my number one in the tuple. Now, tuples can have multiple elements, right? So what I can do is come down here and show you. I'm going to create a tuple called coordinates, for instance. I'm going to set it equal to a tuple that has two items, 10 and 20. Both of these are integers, right? And then I'm going to create another tuple called person. I'm going to set it equal to a string of my name, an integer of 30, and a string of Chicago, where I'm from. And then what I'm going to do is just log that to the console using the print command. I'll log coordinates and person. If I run this again, you see both of my tuples. One it has coordinates, the other one has a mixture of data types, string, and integer. Another thing you can do with tuples is you can do tuple packing. So another thing you can do with tuples is you can do tuple packing. So tuple packing in Python refers to the process of creating a tuple by assigning multiple values to a single variable. So you can pack values into a tuple by separating them with commas. So for example, say if I create a variable called pack, and then I use an equal symbol, I can add multiple items to this variable, and it'll be set in the form of a tuple. So I can do something like 1, 2, 3. So this is basically equivalent as if I were doing like pack and I do equal 1, 2, 3. This is pretty much the same thing, but in this instance, when you're packing, parentheses is optional. You don't really need it. So what I'm going to do is print this to the console just to show you. Pack. And then let me get rid of these so it's more clean. Get rid of this and then run it. And then there you go. We have a tuple with three integers, 1, 2, and 3. Well, now, when it comes to tuple elements, you can access these tuple elements similar to how you access list using an index. For example, I'm going to create a tuple called person. Just use that again. And I'm going to set it equal to my name, an integer, and the place where I'm from, Chicago, right? Now, say if I wanted to access Chicago. So similar to how you did in list, you count starting from 0. So I have 0, 1, 2. So what I can do is do print person, and then I could use the square bracket, and then I could add um index 2, which index 2 corresponds to Chicago. So if I run this again, there you see Chicago printed. I could also do negative indexing, right? So I could do something like this, -1, right? And -1 is going to print out the last item because it works backwards. So from 0 to -1, then I could do that once again, Chicago. Man, another thing you can do with tuples is you could also slice tuples, similar to how we did with lists. So for example, I'm going to create a tuple called numbers, and then I'm going to set it to numbers from 0 to 5. So I'm going to do 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And say if I wanted to slice everything from index 2 to 4, but from like last time, index 4 will be excluded. So if we do start out counting at 0, 2, 0, 1, 2, this is 2, which has the number of 2. We'll grab the number 2 at index 2, the number 3 at index 3. Once we get to 4, it's not going to include what's in 4. So just to demonstrate, I'm going to print numbers. And like before, how we slice the index, we could start off with the index we want, just 2, colon, and 4. And what should be printed out is 2 and 3. So what I'm going to do is run it again. And voila, you get 2 and 3 printed out like before. And that the index 4 is excluded and not included. And then you could do similar, the same thing. Like if I wanted to just print up to index 3, for instance, right? And I could do similar like before. If I wanted to do up to index 3, I could do something like this. Print numbers, and I could do something like colon just 3. Now with this, remember, when you're missing the first number, it just starts off at the beginning of tuple. So right here at 0, whatever number is at index 0 is going to start counting there, and it's going to go all the way to index 3, but it's going to exclude index 3. So if we go 0, we do 0, 1, 2, 3. So 0, 1, 2 is going to be a part of this print and get printed to the terminal, but 3 will be excluded because index 3 is not included. So I'm going to run it again. And we have 0, 1, 2. And then I could do the same thing like before. Like I'm going to copy this. And if I want to start at index 3 and then stop at the last one, all the way to the last one, which it will include that. So at index 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, and then 3, 4, 5. So that should get printed to the console. So if I run it again, we have 3, 4, and 5. Another thing you can do with tuples is you can unpack tuples, right? So say if I wanted to unpack person, the person tuple, what I can do is do something like this: name, age, city equal person. So equal person. So basically what's going to happen is it's going to grab each one in order. So it's going to grab Jerry, assign it to name, 36, assign it to age, Chicago, assign it to city, right? And then I can print each one to the terminal, name, age, city. And if I run this again, let me clear the terminal. There you go. Name, age, and city. Jerry, 36, Chicago. Tuples also have methods. So tuples have only 2 built-in methods. You have a count method, and then you have a dot index method. So let me demonstrate the count method using numbers. So what I can do is I can do print numbers dot count, and then 2. So what it's going to do is it's going to return the number of occurrences of a value. That's what the count method is for. So if we're passing in 2, how many times does 2 show up in numbers, in the numbers tuple? Once. So if I run it again, we should see 1. But what if I like add 5 in this, right? And then I pass 5 here. How many times should this show up? It should show up twice. So if I rerun it again, you'll see 2. So the next method that comes built in with a tuple is the dot index. So for instance, say if I wanted to print numbers, a number from index 4, I could do something like print numbers dot index 4. So let's see what we're working with. So we start counting from 0. You go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. The number 4 is at index 4. So if I run it again, I should get 4 down here. So if I run it again, we have 4 down here. Now, I told you tuples are immutable, meaning they cannot be changed. So for instance, say if I wanted to update coordinates, right? Right. Say if I wanted to update that and I wanted to update index 0 with 15, right? So its coordinates already up there. No, I think I got to recreate it. So let me recreate coordinates. I think I erased it. So I'm going to set coordinates to a tuple of 2 integers, 10 and 20, right? Let's say if I wanted to update it. So I updated. So say if I want, so say if I wanted to update index 0. So I go coordinates, right? Square bracket 0. 0 corresponds to 10. Set that equal to 15. And let me print coordinates. I should get a type error because remember, um, you cannot change tuple. So if I do this, you see tuple object does not support item assignment. So it cannot be modified. So just to recap, we went over tuples, how to create a tuple, how to access items in a tuple. We also talked about packing tuples with values. We talked about that as well. And then we also talked about unpacking tuples and setting them into variables. And then we also went over the 2 methods that come built in with the tuple, which are the count method, which checks the number of occurrences of a particular item, and the index method, which grabs an item from a particular index. And that's pretty much it for tuples. So when you're using tuples, you can use them as return values from functions, and you can return values in tuples from functions, also in dictionaries as immutable keys for sequences that shouldn't be changed. And we'll get into that a little bit more in depth. But just to give you an idea, I'll show you an example. Like say if we create a function called get dimensions, right? So I created this function and then I do return 1920 and 1080, right? Need to fix this. And then I come down here and then I say, okay, width and then height equal get dimensions. Now what's going to happen is this return is going to return both of these values in the tuple. The first one will be set to width, 1920. Second one, 1080, will be set to height, right? And then if I print these with height to the terminal, I should get both of those values. Matter of fact, I have to get rid of this right here. It's running an error. There we go. And that's pretty much it for now on tuples. As we get more advanced, you'll use more tuples, lists, and other data structures and learn more about them. See you in the next video.